Okay, thank you. Before I come to answer that question, I would like to briefly expand on what Dawar Saab said, that the in the Doha Agreement, the Americans gave the Afghan government as a piece of cake to Taliban. I agree with that, but the question is why? Why the U.S. reached that point that they handed over power to Taliban? And I think there was a very clever regional game going on for quite a while. That regional game included Pakistan, China, Russia, and partly Iran also. That they managed to indirectly put the US in a situation where the US think that Taliban were a better alternative than the Republic. Because after all, for the US, it's always about the cost of blood in dollars. And the cost of blood in dollars in supporting Republic or safeguarding the interest through Republic was very high towards the end. But here they thought that it was their own idea, but actually a game was played with cleverly with Americans. That they thought, well, Taliban are very cheap in terms of blood and dollars. No American soldier would be killed, and with $160 million a month, they could achieve or safeguard all the interests of the US in the region. And I think that's what's happening. So if anything happens down the line to Pakistan, that's in the line of safeguarding Americans' interests. Or if anything happened to any other country, that's in the line of safeguarding the American interests. And I think the regional countries have to wake up and think in a different way. So anyway, and I just want to clarify another thing to my brother Dawar Sahib. You see recently that some of the enemies of Taliban are now supporting Taliban against Pakistan. Yes, you are right. But believe me, most of them are playing a game again. They consider Taliban as enemy and Pakistan as enemy. So if the two fight each other, then they benefit ultimately. So game was played with those Afghans, and now they play exactly the same game with Taliban in Pakistan, and they're so pleased that the war is going on between Taliban and. So, in respect to your question, Kuzat, yes, the mistrust between Afghanistan and Pakistan or Islamabad and Kabul has always been on two major issues: the Durand Line and the level of Kabul's relationship with New Delhi. That has been the two issues of contention if and when there were stable capitals. Now, last time when Taliban were in power, India was expelled from Afghanistan altogether, and they faced a plane hijacking in a very nasty circumstances developed there. This time, India is richer, much richer than it was in 1990s, and they were also watching the whole game that was being played. So they have now managed to make the friend of Pakistan to turn friends of Pakistan into enemies of Pakistan, and they invited Mutaqi. Now look at details. When I was Minister of Interior, I visited India in my official capacity. From a meeting, I came out, and there was somebody who told me that, please come here. There's a couple of media people, they want to talk to you. So I went there, and I was put in a situation that I had to say something which caused me problem. Look, what I said. They asked me that there's been a bomb blast in Herat, and your spokesperson said that it was Lashkar-e-Taiba. What do you say? So how could I reject the words of my spokesperson in Kabul? So I had to say yes. And then, wow, they made such big stories out of it. And then my Pakistani friends told me that you are allowed to say anything about us, but not when you are in India. So here comes Mutaqi Sahab. In India, and India is using that trip to show to Pakistan that we can buy your best enemy and we can turn him against you, and you can't do much about it. And by the way, Mutaqi Saab is one of the best friends of Pakistan amongst the Taliban. He's, in terms of relationship with Pakistan, he's not the ordinary Taliban because he has a marriage relationship with Pakistan. All his business are in Pakistan. And look at here that because he wanted to show that, wow, I get closer to New Delhi, and New Delhi might follow Russia and announce recognition of Taliban. But I think he's going to pay a huge cost when he goes back to Kabul. So to summarize, it's all games that are being played. Whether it was republics, games were played with us. Now we realize most of it, that how cleverly they were played. And Taliban's level of education and understanding is not equivalent to that of Republicans. So they are much more simpler people from the villages and from madrasas, and they are easily being deceived and bogged into these huge, nasty issues, problems. The outcome, I am sure, the outcome will be failure of extremism, failure of Taliban, that I can see it down the line, that I can see it in the pipeline. But unfortunately, lots of Afghan and Pakistani blood would be shed before we get there.
So I also want to ask you, in terms of how the region should be dealing with the Taliban. I mean, we just saw India and how they welcomed the Taliban, but the rest of the countries. I mean, there's different schools of thought occurring, and that is one that the Taliban are a reality and they have taken hold of Afghanistan. We must interact with them. We must engage with them. But there's another school of thought that says no, the Taliban do not represent the Afghan people, that they are a terrorist network, they need to be eradicated, they need to be isolated. So, how should the region approach the Taliban with these two different mindsets?
Well, I think I'm a person against war, against violence. We have seen that it's in nobody's interest to continue with violence. And regime changes through violence also never gave a good result. We have so many examples. So if there is regime change, or a smaller than that might be leadership change in the beginning. Now, if we are moving into that direction, then the engagement I would support. Everybody engage with Taliban, I would support. You are right that they are the reality. But engagement has to be conditional. If Afghan women cannot work, if Afghan girls cannot go to school, if the ideology is that in the Afghan embassy in New Delhi, he holds a press conference and does not allow the women journalists. And that was a huge embarrassment for India. And then they begged the Mutaki to hold another conference and invite a few lady journalists, otherwise India would lose face. So this is, I think, petty diplomacy. I think I support diplomacy, I support engagement, but conditional engagement. Agreement from Taliban to agree on the reforms that they had promised the world in the Doha talks. We don't want to get out of the Doha talks. In the Doha talks, they promise inclusive government, inclusive political process. They have to deliver on that. They promise not to let Afghan soil being used against anybody, any other country. Look, we are talking about TTP. Where are they? So it's violated. And then there are 22 other terrorist organizations. And the third one is they promise that the Afghan citizens, men and women, will be given their due rights. And they're not giving, and they're systematically and increasingly denying those basic human rights. And how, for those regional games, you can see they engage with them, starting with Russia. and then now we see India unconditionally coming forward. But I think, like I told you, that this game is far more complicated than a simply inviting an ambassador of Taliban and treating him well here or there. It's a lot more complicated. I conclude this part of my remarks that years back I had said that in and surrounding Afghanistan, plans doesn't work. Accidents drives issues. Accidents drives circumstances, not plan. You may have a plan for something, and there is accident that drives you far away from what you had planned. We saw it in 9/11. We saw it just 2 nights ago in Kabul, and we will see more of those accidents that will determine the fate of Taliban and Taliban's relationship with the region. So I buy the argument that Taliban are reality. I don't go to the reasons why they became that reality. They are there as a power, but they are danger and they are risk to humanity, let alone the region. And I agree, region should engage with them, but conditionally, provided that the level of engagement you increase against what Taliban deliver to Afghan people and the region, and to prove that they are increasingly becoming a responsible state in the world arena.
But given what you said, I mean, it's been 4 years now, right? 4 years is enough time to see how a group can conduct itself. I mean, girls are still not able to go to school. So if in this time the Taliban have not agreed to the conditions that Afghans want, so what should we do now? Do we wait another 4 years? Do we wait another 10 years? I mean, there are active groups even within Afghanistan who want to remove the Taliban. I guess you can call them anti-Taliban forces. Should the region support these forces?
I wouldn't say yes or no to that because I'm part of the biggest political coalition in the country, which is called the National Assembly for Salvation of Afghanistan. In all the 74 political groups, including the one who fight Taliban or their opposition to Taliban, I'm part of that coalition, and actually I'm chief executive of that coalition. So we in that coalition we have decided, or rather we support the idea of regime change, leadership change, because as long as the current group of Taliban who are in power and dominant over the rest, you will never see girl going to school. You will never see women going and you will see more terrorists coming into Afghanistan and becoming center there. So the way forward is leadership change. I'm saying not regime change at this stage, leadership change. How to do it, I don't think I can describe it to you in this forum.
Okay.